Hey, you're just jealous, pencil neck, because I'm gonna get sex and you never even kissed a girl.
I've kissed plenty.
Name one.
Wanda Plen, tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm gonna do it during a slow dance.
Doogie was kind of the everyman protagonist, nice guy.
Then I'm gonna lean in and sniff her shampoo. Girls love getting sniffed. Then I give her a lick on her lobule auriculare.
You're gonna do it in public?
It's her earlobe, stupid.
He was a genius, but they kind of didn't use his genius to have him solve problems, but to just have him able to deal with adults in very adult kind of ways. I think the point of the show was to have a young kid in an adult world being conflicted between having the smarts of an adult and the emotional capacity of a kid. So he was having to, sew up someone's heart and save their life, and at the same time being terrified about going to the prom. I was from New Mexico, and my parents were both attorneys there in a small town, so the profession of acting and the idea of Hollywood was kind of daunting and not so positive for us at that time. It was fun to make a movie, because you'd go and make a movie for 4 or 5 weeks or 6 weeks, and then you'd go back and your life would be pretty normal and sane. But the conceit of coming to LA and dropping everything and from my parents' point of view, having their child be the breadwinner and putting him through the factory of Hollywood seemed like a bad idea. And so we said we'd do a movie or two if that came along, and they did, and that was fun. And then we never do TV. Unless it was a really, really good show. And the good shows that they watched a lot were Hill Street Blues and LA Law. So as soon as they said no TV, and I agreed, then Doogie Howser came along by Stephen Bochco, who wrote LA Law and Hill Street Blues. So we're like, now what do we do? So I got to meet Mr. Bochco before he had even written the pilot. His casting director, Bob Harbin, knew my agent's assistant. So through that chain and through my knowing Bob, I was able to sit in Mr. Bochco's office. And I got to sit with him at a young, I was 15, barely, maybe even 14 at that point. And he had all these cool toys and things in his office, and we talked about nothing really, He didn't have the script written or anything. And then I went away, and then he wrote the script, and then they started casting, and they did this whole wild multi-town over America search. And then finally I got to go back in and meet again, and he still wasn't sure. And then I went back in again and finally got the job. So it was a long process, I suppose. Mr. Bochco was just so nice. He was a very honest man. While we were filming the thing, he sat us down, me and my parents down before the thing started at a restaurant, and said, this is going to be an interesting ride for you, but keep in mind that fame will crest. What was his analogy? It was sort of like the ocean. I think he said fame is not unlike waves, in that, you'll catch a wave and it'll be this great ride, but the wave breaks, and there's sets of waves. And so that might parlay itself into more excitement and fame. But there's long stretches of calm between sets. And, here's hoping that later down the line you hit another set of waves and that you keep working. But that might not, But to have that kind of knowledge to say to a 15-year-old at the time was very cool, very appreciated. He didn't blow smoke up our ass about what the show was or what we would become from it.
Huh?
Oh, Doogie monster.
Oh, Nurse Spaulding.
There's just one thing I have to tell you before we do this.
What's that?
Happy birthday, Doogie.
Surprise! His birthday was about a month later than my own, so we were about the same age. I wasn't having to play older or younger, which was nice. And so it was just kind of me being myself. I was always able to deal with adults well. As a kid, surprisingly well. At like 8 or 9, I was in the church choir with adults, and our middle school choir director, Churchill Cook, would just, for the period of choir, would just go in the office, and I would like choose parts and direct the choir and get it all up and running and then bring him in and we'd do it. So I had a good ability to deal with adults and kind of adult situations well.
You're lucky. If you'd broken your knee, I guarantee it'd hurt a lot worse.
I studied as much little medical stuff as a 15-year-old could, I suppose. Linda Klein was our medical consultant, and we'd go in days before and work out everything and what this word means and how you put an ID in and what you have to do and all of those kind of things. It was fun to be like suturing and stitching and having the, medical advisor come and give you tips, and you were practicing on raw chicken on how to suture, and you'd do it real quick, and the cameras would be there, and we'd roll in the people and the blood and the stuff, and then you do it. But I didn't really go to hospitals or anything. I think he wanted that innocence of me being a kid, and then just throwing the intellectual knowledge of being a genius into that fray as well. So not a lot of research to be done. I was more nervous about filming the pilot. The pilot was just horrifying. Because any episode where I have to dance, I'm not a big fan of the dance. I'm not the Lord of the Dance. I'm just a simple man. So anytime I had to dance, I was just always horrified about it all, because you're in a set with all these extras who are very bored, and you have to dance to music, and then once the dialogue starts, they cut off the music, so you just kind of have to, fake dance while you say your dialogue. Oh, it was horrible. And in the pilot, there was a whole montage where I was getting ready for the big prom with Wanda Plen, and I came out of the shower, and I'm this pudgy little 15-year-old nothing, and I have to, dance the funky Comadina dance. I don't even remember what the song was. I think that was it. And it was so horrifying, and I still watch that clip, and I'm just mortified. And in that same episode, I had my big kiss with Lisa Dean Ryan, who was hot and had lips for days, and this gravelly voice, and she was from Long Beach, and she was very sexy, and I had to kiss her, and it was so nerve-wracking. But then we kissed so much throughout the whole season that by the time season 3 came around, we could have done softcore porn and we wouldn't have batted an eye. We filmed at 20th Century Fox, and there were 2 sound stages side by side, I think 16 and 17. And the one was really ingeniously designed. The hospital set was basically a fully functional hospital set. There was a waiting room, long hallway. On the back hallway was an actual hospital room.